Okay, yeah. So walk me through this. I'll use the term that I've read this before. Explain to me like I'm 11. How you can rationalize. So like if I dumb this down to the lowest common denominator and I say, well, a capitalist would suggest to you, Dr. Claire Wagner, that running a business that moves product regardless of need anywhere without any expectation of return on investment is not sustainable.
So that may be, I mean, I learned something in business school, and that may be not untrue, right? Like, but so there has to be some generation of money in the bank, right? You've got to bring in financing to do the work that you do because it's expensive work. If you look at
Yeah.
any of our press releases, you will see how many zeros are in the dollar sign of how much it costs to do the studies that we do. So our own goal at Gates MRI is not profit. We are a non-for-profit. Our goal is impact, and we're fortunate that our funders are looking for that, right? That's what they're looking for. So when we go to our annual meeting with our funders and when we have our governance meetings, that's what we're accountable for is impact and potential for impact through the products that we're developing.
Yeah.
I think in a sort of in the biotech, biopharmaceutical ecosystem, it is quite different, as you say. You do have a different set of metrics by which you're being measured. And cost of capital is not cheap for many young companies trying to do big things. And the financing world is evolving to address some of those problems. And there's a lot of new types of non-dilutive financing that are out there. But I see it as a real opportunity for us to play a big role in this ecosystem because we get to be measured by impact.
Yeah.
And that's a special thing.
For sure. Yeah. When you joined Gates MRI, you joined as chief of staff. Is that correct? Like you didn't come on in your current role, although it seems like you were, kind of custom cut for the current role that you're in. What was the opportunity as chief of staff?
Just like any other organization, we have grown and we've evolved. And 4+ years ago, when I joined, we looked quite different. We had a
Yeah.
different set of things that we were doing. We had a different composition, and it was COVID, so we weren't even in the office. I don't think I met anyone until about a year in
Yeah.
person. And so, what I really think is a great part about being with a young organization is the opportunity to identify a business need and start to test out how to solve that business need. And so at the time when I joined, the business need was chief of staff. And as I continued on here at Gates MRI, and as we evolved and our portfolio grew and the products in our portfolio advanced to later stages, we identified this new business need to really think about access and how are we going to work with our partners at the Gates Foundation and with our other commercial and philanthropic partners to ensure access and impact. And so that was then the business need. And I'm fortunate to have been able to grow here to address some of those business needs. And I do feel that it draws on the many different types of product introductions that I had a chance to be a part of in Rwanda, working with the WHO on the essential medicines list, working with Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and a number of different roles. This really is I am able to bring in a lot of prior experience to this role.
Yeah. Yeah. And that role, I mean, as we said, head of corporate strategy and market access, it occurs to me that looking at the mission at Gates MRI, there are multiple things that are like super central to that, like the legs of the stool, like we need to produce, in volume vaccines and therapeutics that um, that address these unmet needs in these places. We need to get them there. That's central. Like we need to get them there. We need to get them there in a timely and efficient manner. Um, that element of your job, like figuring that out, seems like everything. I mean, maybe not everything, but it's one of the things, right? That has to happen for Gates MRI to address its mission. Um, what does that feel like? Like it feels pretty like a heavy responsibility. So I guess I'm going to get to a question here. What does that responsibility feel like, and what are you doing to meet it? Like what does that look like? I mean, you say you're drawing a lot of these experience from your past, and when you, I guess, scale those experiences up from, a hospital that Paul built in Rwanda to a global mission, what do those responsibilities look like? That
So
was a
there, yeah.
terribly worded question.
No. I gotcha. So our portfolio spans different disease areas: TB, malaria, infant malnutrition. It also spans product types. So in TB, for example, we have a TB vaccine, we have a TB treatment program, and in malaria, we have a malaria monoclonal program, monoclonal antibody program, as well as as you mentioned at the start, a program to address infant malnutrition called our B Infantis program, which is a probiotic. Each of those, being at various stages of development, requires a different lens in terms of so-called market access. And when I refer to market access, I'm talking about the suite of activities that are required basically to get a product from, let's say, R&D to a patient. It's very broad. It's used in lots of different ways and different functions, and it can take on lots of different meanings. But in this particular setting, let's take that as our example. So for an earlier stage product, or let's say a product that you haven't quite brought into your portfolio, that might look like doing things like a global policy landscape, developing a value proposition, demand forecast, and so forth. And as you move through, as you're refining some of those vantage points on the actual product, you're going to start looking at your cost of goods. You're going to start developing your end user segmentation, your business plan to get this product to market. And for example, in our TB vaccine program, the M72 AS01 program, we're now at the phase where we're deep into the enrollment of this trial. It's a really exciting time. This is a product that is for the prevention of active pulmonary tuberculosis. A quarter of the world's population is thought to be latently infected with TB. That is a lot of people. Our vaccine is designed to prevent the conversion to active TB. It's a very expensive study. It takes a long time. And yet we haven't had a new vaccine for TB in over 100 years. And so the opportunity that the Gates Foundation saw to bring this into Gates MRI and have us usher forward the phase 3 development was just an incalculable opportunity for public health impact. So the work that we get to do now in collaboration with our commercial partner, GSK, as you mentioned earlier, as well as our partners at the Gates Foundation and Wellcome, that are our funders, but also our collaborators on a lot of the actual work that we're doing to think about access, advocacy, policy engagement, new product introduction. This is a new product class. There is no adult vaccine for tuberculosis out there. The only vaccine that I mentioned earlier over 100 years ago, or that was developed over 100 years ago, is for kids. It's not for adults. So our studies, which are being run in all over the world, right, and in 7 countries in Africa and Asia, are really designed to answer the question of, could this vaccine be efficacious and have the kind of public health impact that we hope it could have. to your specific question about the work that we're doing now to make that a reality, I'll come back to one of the words that we were talking about before around collaboration. It is really through collaboration, both with the set of our core partners, so our philanthropic and commercial partners, but also ultimately the future payers, the future users, the procurement agencies. There are many, many different types of stakeholders that are being, have been, will continue to be, and will ultimately be collectively engaged in ensuring this product gets to market.
Mm-hmm.
The work that we get to do now is on really access and launch planning. How will that look? What are the different types of financial architecture that will need to be stood up? What are the different policy recommendations that that are on the critical path? How do we set ourselves up for success with a commercial partner to commercialize the actual product? We will not be the entity on the label. It will be another company. So some of the work has to do with that, commercial engagement and due diligence. And the suite of activities under market access is quite long, and we could spend a lot of time talking about it. But I think the core of it is going to be around implementing the values that the Gates Foundation has around all lives having equal value, and that Wellcome has around equitable access, and about capacity building and engagement with clinical trial leaders in the countries where we're working. And that's one of the we are not a human capital development organization, but everything that we do is through brilliant leaders and clinical trialists are all over the world. And so through that, we get to have this opportunity for bidirectional learning and engagement and capacity building in settings that in the settings where our clinical trials are being done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, if you could just reflect for a couple of minutes, I know we're going to run short on time here, and I've got a couple more important questions I want to get to. But the complexity, you talk about the payer landscape, usually when I'm talking to a biotech exec who's talking about the payer landscape, they're talking about the payer landscape in the United States of America or in Europe, maybe in Asia. You're talking about a payer landscape that has, a global payer landscape with all sorts of different facets and crevasses and things to negotiate, right? Between that, like the clinical landscape operating on a global scale as you are, it sounds like it would take an entire practice at Gates MRI to manage the logistics and complexity of those things. Like how are you going about that?
And this would also be worthy of a whole.
We're going to need to book a lot more time with you, Dr. Wagner.
I mean, really through the partnerships that we have established, we have, so in our organization, we look similar to a pharmaceutical company in that under the hood, you'd find all of the same functions, right? Mm-hmm. CMC, regulatory, clinical development, clinical operations, and so forth. But we maintain a pretty lean setup so that we can be agile to address the needs of to conduct the work that we need to do and address the public health needs. And so in that kind of setup, which is a certain type of business model, right? And in business school, you learn about all kinds of build, buy, borrow models that you can implement in any organization. That's the same for us. And this is the model that we have chosen to work around or to work with. And that kind of model, though, means that you are set up to work on efforts with your partners, and that has to be a core capability, is engagement with your partners. And so I would say that the very short answer to what your question is that we can't do it all. We don't do it all. We work through our partners and collaborators to do it. And we rely on we rely on our partners and collaborators and on ourselves to be mission driven, and that you're coming to the table because you have a passion to do this work. And I subscribe to the idea that the world runs on passion. Okay, the world also runs on money, but the world also runs on passion. And I think that we see that a lot here at Gates MRI. The many nights and weekends and intense hours that are put in by all functions, all members of our organization to get this work done, is reflective of the kind of mission orientation that is attracted to this type of organization, including myself.
Yeah. Okay, so in the time that we have left, one more question for you, and that is, as you can tell, I mean, throughout the course of the conversation, I've been attempting to draw parallels between, the nonprofit nature of Gates MRI and the for-profit nature of, public and private biotechs that comprise the bulk of our business and biotech audience. And you've done a fantastic job, by the way, of exposing the valuable lessons that, whether you're for-profit or not, Gates MRI is setting, the examples that Gates MRI is setting. So we've been kind of doing that as we go. But if I were to ask you point blank, like, what's your opinion on the, takeaway or two that you would like to impress upon biotechs of all stripes, mostly the for-profit guys? What would you like to impress upon them that the Gates MRI is doing and doing well and can be, replicated or at least considered in those companies' access and distribution models?
Thanks, Matt. Great question. One of the elements that I've seen play out from a number of different lenses that I've had the opportunity to have over time, both in Rwanda, working with the WHO, and now at Gates MRI, is that it's never too early to start thinking about access. From the very earliest stage of product development, when you're just thinking about a product, you should be thinking about access. What are the different characteristics that need to be fulfilled in your target product profile for this product to have a bigger market? What is the critical path for this product to get to XYZ markets around the world? We are so very focused on the US, the EU5, Japan, and so forth. We haven't quite, from a very, very early stage yet, looked at access with a more global landscape. And I say we, putting myself in that bucket, I think we can always do a better job of doing that. And so where I would really encourage us all in the global biotech ecosystem to look at more is, what are those very early decisions that you can make from the ideation phase all the way through phase 3 that will ensure equitable access to a product in global markets?
Yeah. Okay. I know we're short on time and you need to leave. So one last question, and you can make it a super quick response. You seem happy in this role that you have now, but coming off all these awesome experiences, you seem happy and you seem like you're inspired, like to do good work, and you're doing great work. When this tuberculosis vaccine is approved and is ready for distribution, is there a part? Yeah. Is there a part? She crossed her, for those of you listening, there were fingers crossed just now. Is there a part of you, a little part of you that, maybe hopes to be part of the team that's, unloading these things from the airplanes and shipping them to hospitals back in places like Rwanda?
Oh my goodness. What a great image to have in one's mind. There's nothing better than to think about that. Yes, I think the impact is the name of the game here. And we are working day in and day out to make sure that does become a reality. And certainly, I hope that I hope that that happens sooner rather than later, and we all have fingers and toes crossed that the phase 2B will play out in phase 3 for this TB vaccine.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Wagner, I will let you get on with your day. I appreciate you coming on. I thought this was a fascinating discussion, very inspiring. It was an honor to have you on the show. And as you mentioned several times throughout our conversation, we could go for another hour here, another hour there. I hope you'll consider it. I hope we can maybe have you back on to drill down on some of these topics at a later date.
Happy to, Matt. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the chance to talk with you. And yeah, thank you so much.